Welcome to the Elite Men Podcast. We coming back at you with the new season. We've been going for a while. There's been some things that happened in 2023 that was a little tragic for me. My mom passed away, so that kind of took me off the podcast app for a while, just trying to straighten some things out with that with my brother. I got my homeboy Marcus here, and we come to you guys with some great topics this year in 2024. One of the topics that we're gonna come at you guys today is gonna be how do a man push through adversity and keeping their emotions stable. That's something I wanted to talk about because I think a lot of men deal with emotions differently, and I think sometimes when you grew up, your father might have told you to suck it up, don't cry, or just be a man, and those things kind of push emotions down. And when you get married or when you function as a man, I think some of those things kind of affect you at how you deal with life and things that come about. And I brought Marcus on because he's been dealing with a couple things about how to function with those emotional things that he's dealing with, and he's may share some things about how he coped with that piece, right? Because I think every man copes with it different. Some men cope with it from a barbaric standpoint. Some men do it with a nurturing standpoint, and some men just try to stay away from it at all and just go numb to the fact. So we're gonna dive into this topic about how do men control their emotions, stay stable with it. And we're going to put some scriptures into this too, also, because one of the biggest factors is a man can't be stable to me unless he has Christ with his emotions, right? Because if you're trying to balance your emotions, what are you balancing them off of? Are you balancing them off of a movie? Are you balancing them off of a uncle or a relative or a friend or even games that you grew up in? Are you balancing your emotions off those? So we're going to dive into this. This is going to be kind of brief. Then we're going to dive into the next series about what men look for in women and a wife. Today's culture is so different for what men really looking for. Some people say we look for a woman's body. Some people say we look for sex. All these other things that they say we look for. But we're gonna talk about that. It's gonna get real grimy on what we talk about. Some things gonna be good. Some things people are not gonna agree with because it's coming from a male perspective. It's not to be disrespecting women, but it's just to be truthful for what men think. Not all, but some. So we're gonna dive into this topic right now about emotions and how do we keep them stable. I want to ask Marcus a couple of questions, man. Give us a little bit about your background on how you learned to deal with emotions. Was it healthy or unhealthy?
Yeah, so for me, originally from the East Coast, came from a military family, and the other half of my family worked for IBM. Back when IBM used to actually be IBM
Right.
in corporate America. So I had good foundational principles from there. But when my family relocated to Texas about 20 plus years ago, my parents got divorced when I was in middle school.
Okay.
So I primarily lived with my mother, and my dad, he was not very emotional, like you mentioned in the beginning.
Right.
He's not a person to show any type of fear, emotion. He won't tell you he loves you, anything like that. He may feel those things,
Right.
but he does not show it at all. So that's what I always grew up feeling from an emotional standpoint, and really held it in and not knowing how to express stuff. Yeah, my mom always expressed the type of stuff like a lot of women do. They're more nurturing
That's
from
true.
that standpoint and everything. But my dad was more of a traditional father to where he didn't show that type of emotion. So when I was with him, you felt like you had to wear that hard coat of armor around him.
Man's man.
Yeah, exactly. Like to this day, I've never seen my dad cry my entire life. I've seen him be sick maybe 2 or 3 times my entire life. Even though he may feel sick, he's not going to show it. But internally, that built a firmness and a strongness within me too to power through stuff.
Right.
So I get sick like once every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And even when I am, I don't really feel sick the last 2 or 3 days. And you would never know it because I don't sit in it. I don't feel that emotion. But over the last couple of years, I've learned to release a lot more of my emotions. The closer that I've gotten to God, the closer my spiritual walk has gotten, and really want to show my boys. I got 2 boys, 9 and 6, to be more vulnerable, to be more in tune with your feelings and not hold that stuff in, because I know what it did to me. I had a lot of anger, and when I went into sports, especially football, I released a lot of built up anger that I had built inside of me, especially when it came from my parents' divorce, because I was so young at the time. I didn't know the emotions that I was feeling. I just know how to release anger out on a football field or a basketball court or baseball field, track, whatever the case may be, getting in fights in school, all that type of stuff. So I was releasing anger in the wrong type of way to where now in my spiritual walk, I'm able to release it in a healthy way.
You know, man, that's something that you said, man, that your pops didn't show emotions, man. You know, I don't think as men, man, we were even showed or explained to how to deal with emotions healthy. I think either we're gonna internalize it and just suck it up and just be like, you know what, I deal with it, or I'll fix the problem, or you know what I'm saying? It ain't no big deal. You just push it, shove it off. You know what I'm saying? Right. I was raised by my pops and my mom. You know what I'm saying? It was a jacked up situation between them. You know, my mom was more the gangster role, and my father he played. I would probably say a little bit on the softer role. You know what I'm saying? So it threw me off because my mom didn't show emotions. I see it from a woman perspective, not showing emotions. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And when I got married, oh man, bro, having a mom that don't show emotions and marrying a woman that show emotions, that's dysfunctional for a person like me. My wife used to, she used to cry or she'd show emotions. I'd be like, suck it up, man. What you crying for? I thought it was weak. And for years we hit heads because she felt like I'm just, just a barbaric beast. In which, in some form of fashion, she was 100% right because I didn't see my mother cry. So I thought this is how women function. My pops, I didn't see my pops cry either. I kind of grew up in a house that did not have a lot of strong emotions, not even from my pops or affection. You know what I'm saying? So I only knew affection by sexual content. You know what I'm saying? From that perspective, didn't know it from the perspective of holding hands. Like I grew up, man, in environments to where I couldn't hold hands. I felt like because I would be seen as weak. I mean, all these things might sound crazy to women listening to, but and maybe some men, but to me, that's the way that I've seen it when I grew up. And move fast forward, I started having daughters, and my daughter, and I didn't really show emotions in my house. My daughter started growing up. Well, one of my oldest daughters, she definitely grew up like me. She's real I ain't gonna say non-emotional, but her emotions ain't as strong as I would think a woman emotions is. Only because she felt like she had to hide that because it was looked like a weakness in the house. And so when she got older, and I was like, "Where's the sensitive side that you?" She couldn't produce it because she lived with me. So some of those things that we grow up with, not knowing how to function with emotions and still keeping a man's man, right? I think that's the biggest factor, bro. Like somebody say, if you act too emotional, you look gay. Right. And please don't say no like I said because we use the word gay. That's just what the generation in the 80s, 90s use. You know what I'm saying? But they would say we grew up gay. You know what I'm saying? You too much into your emotions, right? So you didn't know no balance there. You know what I'm saying? So when your pops was not emotional, and then you got older, how did that work with women when you dealt with them in your life?
Yeah. So really, for me, not knowing how to be sympathetic, right, or really empathetic at that time. So I met my wife at 19 years old, and we got into a relationship immediately right after that. Right. We got married at 22 years old. So in 2012, 2 years into our marriage, she collapsed. Right. Forgot how to walk, talk, lost her memory, everything like that. So she went through a traumatic period in her life to where I didn't know how to deal with those emotions. Right. I got married at 22. This happened at 24 years old. Right. I'm still trying to learn who I even am as a person. Right. So not learning those things growing up, it forced me to grow up a lot faster at that point in time because now I'm dealing with somebody that has no idea who I am anymore. Doesn't know how to walk on their own, doesn't know how to talk, can't even clothe themselves, bathe themselves, anything of that nature. So God instilled in me, without me even knowing it, how to find a lot of those emotions within that.
Was there any anger involved in that process, bro? Absolutely. Like, the biggest thing was, when you get married, right? You think it's about to be on and pop. You know what I'm saying? Listen, man, we about to sell off to the ocean, whatever you want to say. We about to get it in. and then bam, this happened, right? You feel, listen, it is what it is. As a man, you feel robbed a little bit, right? Because you was assuming that your marriage is gonna go like this, but it didn't go like this. So now you feel at 24, let's keep it 100. You got a sex drive, that's pumping. Then you got that you just want to be able to hang with your lady, you know what I'm saying, do things, and all that it just come to a halt. Man, that bro, emotionally, like your pop gave you the logical side.
Right.
But the emotional side, bro, how hard was the shift just to that part right there, bro?
I mean, nobody signs up for marriage to think somebody's going to collapse
right
2 years into the marriage.
Right.
Otherwise, you most likely wouldn't even sign up for the marriage having to deal with it.
No, I wouldn't sign up.
Exactly.
Call it what y'all want, but I ain't signing up for none of that. But if I did have to, I'm going to do it. But I'm saying I'm not looking for a lady in a wheelchair when I'm getting married.
99% of us would not either.
Right.
So including myself. But I think when you go through something like that, it captivates you and propels you into a whole nother atmosphere that other people that age just aren't even ready for, don't experience, and don't even realize what you're going through. Like a lot of my life, I've been told you act a lot older than you really are. And really this comes from the experiences that I've been through.
Right.
Something like that. Also, her going through a car accident in 2016, 4 years after collapse and everything like that. So when she collapsed, it triggered a lot of seizures.
Right.
So she got diagnosed with epilepsy, which she still has today. And then when she had the car accident, it re-triggered a lot of the epilepsy symptoms, along with neck injuries and back injuries and wrist injuries and 3 surgeries since then. So it put me in a place to get my competitive drive up in all aspects of my life.
So the emotion that you really kind of tapped in was you push forward. You know what I'm saying?
Really a no excuse mindset.
Right.
I work for Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, still do today, but I was in an entry level collection agent position when all this happened. So my whole work drive went into a whole nother gear to outwork everybody around me. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a master's degree. I don't have a bachelor's degree. I don't even have an associate's degree.
Right.
But God instilled in me a lot of wisdom to outwork everybody else, to do a lot of the basics. That's why I tell people master the basics around you, and instilled in me how to learn what she was going through on a day-to-day basis. I had to learn how to clothe her, bathe her, how to learn how to do hair, feed her, give her drinks, and walk through the whole process to where it made me a better person having to walk that out with her on top of it.
Let me ask you a question, man. How is your compassionate level function from that emotional perspective, right? Because when you have to deal with something so dramatic as what you dealt with, and you see other people, right, and they come up to you and say, well, listen, I'm dealing with this, right? You're like, man, you don't even know what I'm dealing with, right? Was your compassionate level the same when you heard other people's problems? Do you feel like, man, listen, bro, you ain't nearly dealing with anything I'm dealing with? How you felt behind that?
Yeah, so my sympathy gained for her, my empathy gained from other people.
Okay.
So empathy comes from understanding what others are going through. So once I started talking to other people and they go through any type of this situations, whatever the case may be, whether it be going through some type of sickness, disease, car accident, broken bones, surgeries, divorce, whatever the case may be, you learn so much going through those type of situations that you're able to help somebody else while you're going through your own pain. Right. And it helps you gain a certain empathy level to where you have this capacity of understanding what other people are going through while you still experiencing what you're going through as well. Because a lot of people only look at the person that may be going through something, but the caretaker is going through a lot of the same emotions as well. Nobody ever checks on the caretaker.
No, nobody check on me, period. Because you know what? People say me and feelings don't count.
Yeah.
By prime example, if a dude cry, they start making memes about the brother. So we ain't even built to even want to show our emotions. Right. You know what I'm saying? And if most men, even with my wife, I still don't show the full capacity of my emotion to my wife. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I don't trust my wife, but that vulnerable piece is just a difficult thing to open up to. You know what I'm saying? But what I am comfortable with functioning, the strongest emotion I function with is anger. Let me explain to you why, bro. I think anger was a way that I was taught to resolve situations in that emotional factor, right? Like when people say something to me, people disrespect me, right? The first emotion I go to isn't calm, isn't let me think about this process, I'm about to put these hands on this person, this brother. You know what I'm saying? He's about to catch all 10 of these hands. I'm giving them to him. And I'm going to give them to him good. And I'm going to pray for him after that. That's the way I feel. Now, most men, you can lie to yourself, but a good portion of men function with anger as the first result, then function as second. Because we were told to use force to control situations. Your dad, your son, if somebody put their hands on you, you hit them back. You don't let anybody hit you, right? All those things. Nobody never told you walk away, and if you walk away, you're not a chump. You still a man. Those things ain't told. No, you stand 10 toes down, you get it in. And I think those parts are what most men function in, is the anger part. And as I get older now, I realize I gotta change that piece. But I'm changing it because of, actually, I would probably say, as I get older, you know what I'm saying? Maturity is what started to change that, right? I don't want people looking at me like this dude, 40-something years old, still out here trying to fight, right? What a 40-year-old dude with gray hairs and his beard look like trying to fight? Now, don't get me wrong, I still do handle my business, but it ain't based on, it's more defending myself versus saying that I need to defend my manhood because somebody disrespected me, right? So I think that part of emotion. And then the second part of emotion, bro, I'm gonna ask you about is, when do we show that softness more than we show the hardness, right? Like when you was with your wife and y'all was around each other, you know what I'm saying? Did you show the softness? Was it okay for you to rub your fingers through her hair? You know what I'm saying? When y'all sitting on the couch, you rubbing her back, you know what I'm saying? Was that common for you to do those things, or did you have to naturally work your way into that? Or did, when she went through what she went through, that's when you started learning how to nurture, because she needed all those things done?
Yeah, I had to learn that over time. That was not something that was naturally instilled in me, because you naturally have that forceful mentality, like you said, that testosterone running.
Right.
Like you want to knock somebody out all the time.
Right.
So I had to be more intentional about that and really learn how to do it more along the way, and really get more in tune with myself. It really wasn't until I got more in the church and closer to God,
right,
to where I learned more about my emotional side, and to where you can relinquish a lot of that power and will over to God versus trying to do everything yourself, because I still didn't do a good job of it to her. Right. Never did. Right. Because even if something was wrong, I would still try to make everything look like it was fine.
Right.
Even if it was for myself. I wanted to be strong in the moment and show that presence to her. Even if she's laid up in the hospital, I'm going to be like, nah, everything's fine. Just like you see in movies, you see somebody that just got shot and they asking you, am I going to be okay? You just tell them, yeah, you have no idea. Right. You know that they about to pass away. Right. You're just trying to be strong, you're firm in that moment. That's the persona that I was giving off to her and to other people. Like, nah, I'm good. Everything's going to be okay. I got this. It's all good.
That's a difficult thing right there. What you said, I know I function in that, man. That my wife sometimes think that that's a dysfunction in me because she wants to be able to know that I'm human, right? And I don't show the human side. I'm always, Superman, not Clark. Because if you looked at Clark, man, Clark had glasses on. We talking about Superman, right? He had glasses on. He looked all weak. The dude hit his arm. He started bending over, falling apart. But when the cape came over, baby, my man was still man of steel. And I think we function from the man of steel versus function from the Clark perspective, right? If I go back and think about Jesus, right? Jesus was the man of steel, but he had the compassion of Clark, right? When he dealt with people, he dealt with them from an emotional perspective, right? And I think as men, if we use Jesus as an example, right, and we say, hey, look here, man, Jesus was the biggest role model. He wasn't no punk. He kept some goons around. But y'all don't know, man, Jesus had 12 henchmen. Don't think that they were weak. One of my mans had a sword. And he had an anger problem. I mean, because if you look at it, my man whipped the sword out, bro. Cut my man ear off. It didn't have no type of emotions behind it. Like, this was business as usual. And so if you look at that factor, man, that even Jesus hung around men that had problems, but he was also trying to show them, listen, I'm not trying to take your masculinity from you, but I want you to balance it, right? He told people, listen, don't put this man ear back on. Show this man some compassion, bro. You know what I'm saying? Those things, I think, as men, we only learn how to be compassionate through Christ. You know what I'm saying? Even in our personal sex life, me and my wife. Listen, I grew up. That's a big puzzle piece of emotions. I grew up Maybe people don't know, man. I grew up to rappers like Too Short, 8 Ball MJG. You know what I'm saying? I grew up to like pimping music. And pimping music removed the emotional piece and just have you function as a hardcore dude. Like my wife used to tell me, I feel like a piece of meat. That's it. And I'm like, what you talking about? I'm giving you all I got. You know what I'm saying? Emotion wise. But now it's like becoming my 40s. I say, that's what she's saying because the emotional connection you want me to rub my fingers through your hair. You want me to caress your back. You know what I'm saying? You want me to take my time. If emotionally, I couldn't comprehend that. Yeah. I'm just, let's get it in, coach. We're going in. And I think that part is where, as men, we become dysfunctional. Yeah. This is to help men out there that think that they ain't going through what they going through with their wives. And this is the other wives listen to that. Listen, there's a lot of men that probably function like your wife, like your husband, that don't have that emotional piece, but it's because we grew up and we were groomed to that. And please stop telling your husband you too old to be functioning like this. My wife tell me that. Like, when did trauma become something that you just get over like this? You know what I'm saying? I tell my wife said that. I said, well, listen, I want you to come on to me 100% of the time, but you don't. When you gonna get past that? And then arguments start. I'm sorry, I'm going to got a camera there because I'm just going talking to Marcus about that. But you know what I'm coming with, right? Yeah. So that's something we just want to try to touch on a little bit about men dealing with emotions and some of the puzzle pieces that we use to deal with. Now, I'm gonna give you two things that I use to deal with my emotions. First thing is I stop and I talk to Jesus about it. I ask Jesus, I say, hey man, listen, am I functioning wrong? Am I too hard? What I need to do to soften this situation, because a lot of times I can be a real hard person to live with because of how I function as a real non-emotional type of guy sometimes. So one of my things is I just stop. I talk to Jesus about it. It's something that you do, Marcus, too. When you see your emotions are starting to take off or go a different direction, how you rope that back in?
Yeah, no, I'll get vulnerable, real personal right now. So I mentioned I was married. I'm going through a divorce right now.
Right.
Me and my wife, we've been married it'll be 14 years this year. We're going through a divorce right now, going through the entire process. And that is a whole wave of emotions, a whole wave of adversity, especially when you're dealing with custody situations with two kids, child support, spousal support, the court system, all types of stuff. So there's days where I'm mad, angry, sad, heartbroken. You feel every single type of emotion. But like you said, like my spiritual walk is better than it's ever been because it allows me more time to get into the word. And I always say to people, get in the word until it gets into you. Right. Because right now it feels like I'm going through an impossible situation. Right. Because we had a temporary hearing and the outcome was not favorable for me at all.
Most times it's not favorable for me.
Exactly. Right. And I had to file an appeal. So I have an appeal date next month. So God willing, it'll all get sorted out through there, because the amount that the judge wants me to pay, I literally do not even have the amount to make those payments on a monthly basis. So it looks like they did a miscalculation. But if you look at the situation, it's like that's an impossible situation.
Right.
But just like it says in Luke 17:28, what is impossible to man is possible with God. And right. He's in a season with me of elevating me, because I am good mentally, physically, emotionally, and most importantly, spiritually. I got more time than ever to get more involved with God, staying physically strong. If I was not mentally stable right now, or emotionally stable, or physically stable, I would have a headache every single day from anxiety, depression. My back would be hurting. My knees would be hurting. I wouldn't be getting any type of sleep.
That sounds like me, brother. I don't feel like I'm depressed. Knees hurt, back hurt. I barely sleep.
You just getting old.
Those symptoms of old people too, people. Go ahead.
But no, for real though, like just like it says in Proverbs 24:10, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. So we have to operate with the right mindset, regardless of what you're going through. And God puts everybody through a test in life. That's how you even have a testimony to give to other people. And as I'm going through this situation in this season of my life, I'm be able to be a blessing to more people than I was when I wasn't going through anything. Because now I have the experience which turns into wisdom to give to other people if I wasn't going through anything. You got to make mistakes in life. That's how you learn, and then that's how you provide to others.
Right. And I don't, and listen, this brother's going through a divorce, man. And a lot of people probably got questions in their head, like what happened, how did this transpire, and all those type of things, man. Believers do go through divorces. I want people to know that. And it's not that I advocate or I even say divorcing is something that I go, aim for. This man actually did not file for his divorce. So he was a man, because my podcast is based on men hanging in there, right? Men staying focused, right? This man did not file for his divorce. So I don't want people to think that, this man is quitting. This man was in a battle. You can't change something if a spouse wants to move towards something, right? And all you can do is pray and then, hope God give you favor and deal with that situation. So for all the people that, that's religious or see things from that perspective, it's not that we advocate divorce on Elite Man podcast. We just know things happen. It's real life. But that man is dealing with a big emotional piece, just having to deal with a court system and deal with kids. And most men, as us, we just want to lash out or use anger to control a situation. This man has to restrain himself to be able to do that. So my hats go off to him for that. You know what I'm saying? So, we're gonna end up wrapping up the podcast. But the biggest point I want people to take away today is that, listen, it's okay to function in all those emotions, right? You're not a bad person functioning in anger. You're not a bad. But the Bible said be slow to anger. I'm sorry, man. Slow to anger. And we just want y'all to realize that I function in all of them, right? As I get older, I function in heavy emotions now as I got older. Like I don't mind rubbing my fingers through my wife's hair, talking to her while we sitting there. It's not all about just getting down to business. All those things became something that when I was younger, that I didn't have any training or I didn't have the proper people in my life that would hold me accountable for the emotions. A lot of times you have to have people hold you accountable for your emotions, right? You can't do it yourself. You got to find somebody that you respect and you got to be able to be honest with them, right? It don't make you less of a man to tell a man you don't know, right? Or you scared or you don't know how to deal with these emotions. You have to find somebody to reach out to. And listen, man, you can even reach out to Elite Men Podcast at gmail.com if you have a problem with anything. Down below, there'll be an email where you can email us with any questions that you have or comments. And also, Marcus, to this day, still has his clothing brand, Unwavering. And you can look for the link below for that. And if you want to subscribe and support this man for his Unwavering clothing brand, because this man can use all funds as he's dealing with what he's dealing with. Listen, the court system isn't cheap. I don't want people to think dealing with divorce isn't cheap. It strains your pockets because both parties are separating. So there's two people that need to be supported. So just know that those things become complicated too. But our next episode, when it comes to you guys, is going to be about women. We're going to talk about what godly men look for, what we don't approve of, and what social media tell us that we look for, which is not true. We don't look for women, and I know this is a little bit off note, with these 1,000-pound eyelashes that flap like this. This is not what real men look for. I'm just being honest with you. Please do not get offended. But I'm telling you, men look for more authentic and natural women than they look for what you think the media tell you that we look for. My wife was natural. She didn't have bat lashes where she flying around, you know what I'm saying? And she didn't have like a pound of makeup on. Each his own, because some men love the bat lashes, some men love the makeup. For me, and maybe I will do something where I go get men views to show y'all that I guarantee a lot of men ain't looking for the same thing. That's not something you're going to bring home to your mother. Is a woman at the table look like she's going to fly away with these bat lashes. But anything you want to say, Marcus, before we wrap up?
No, I just wanted to add real quick. Stay connected to people regardless of what you're going through in life. That's one of the biggest things that has helped me throughout this transition, throughout this period of time, throughout this season, is having that community, having that network, having that brotherhood. I'm on 5 different men's Zoom calls a week, so I'm staying plugged in, praying every single day, staying in the Word every single day, attending men's breakfasts, because men, a lot of times we hold stuff in, especially when it comes to emotions. And that's one of the worst things that you can do in life, because then you're just suffering in bondage. And that's when the devil attacks the most. So the more ammunition that you can have around you with strong men of God, keeping that word around you, staying in prayer, and keeping that relationship with God is going to help you the most at the end of the day. So appreciate your time today.
All right. We thank y'all for tuning in to Elite Men Podcast. Be ready for the next hot topic we got coming up. I might dive into politics with people. And that's going to be real controversial because everybody seems not like to talk about politics, but politics is what control our paychecks, unfortunately. So we're going to dive into a little bit of it. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one.